just a quick note, they did misspell my last name on the program, so given the fact that we're in College Station, I'm going to overlook that. So, in any case, my presentation this morning is going to be on aligning our resources to develop an effective work program, or program. Basically, everybody is familiar with this graph that everybody's talked about. The UTP aligns itself kind of, right now it's kind of pointing towards the programming side of it, but the UTP in fact actually touches on all cylinders of this cyclical process. But for this conversation, we're going to focus in on the programming side of it. So, and this morning you've already heard from Michelle Conco on the long-range plan, from Caroline Mays on the freight and border plan, and also from Susan Chavez. You did a great job on corridor planning, all of which are really important initiatives to the success of our transportation planning process and necessary to ensure that the department is focused on delivering the right projects. So you might ask, so what are the right projects? Everyone talks about it, but so basically these are projects that have been vetted through our planning process described by our previous presenters and in alignment with the department's strategic goals, basically. The processes start with the integration of portfolio management, which includes the proposal of projects and ultimately the programming of those projects to build and maintain a portfolio as they flow through the different stages of a plan, develop, and construct. And we'll talk about that in a little more detail here shortly. Right now, I kind of want to run through what the UTP is. I know there's probably, everyone's heard of it, just in more kind of the nuts and bolts of what that program is. It's basically a 10-year plan that's intended to control and guide the transportation project development and efforts with, through efforts with the department. The UTP is developed annually in accordance with the Texas Administrative Code Rule, Chapter 16.105, and is approved by the Texas Transportation Commission annually by August 31st or at the end of the state fiscal year. The UTP contains department categories that enhance the transportation system in accordance with the department's goals and outlines the various project selection methods that apply in each of the categories. And we'll talk about those categories here shortly. The UTP is fiscally constrained based upon the Finance Division's planning forecast. It also lists projects in a 10-year time frame that authorizes these projects for construction, development, and planning activities. It's important to note that this plan is a plan. It does not authorize projects for letting. So that's one distinction that we have to make. In addition, the highway and bridge, in addition to highway and bridge projects, the plan also includes projects related to rail, to public transportation, aviation, and as well as state and coastal waterways. So we kind of touch a little bit on all the different modes of transportation. So mostly focusing in on the highway and bridge projects. As I mentioned earlier, the UTP is the framework that connects funding to projects. It's organized into 12 categories, each covering a different type of work. It says the 12 categories in the UTP are supported by multiple fund sources. These fund sources include federal programs that are eligible for reimbursement. We have state funds and non-traditional funding, such as state bond programs. If you have any questions on any particular fund sources that you see here, you know, more than welcome. There we have encouraged to visit our UTP that's online, 2017 UTP. Or if you still have questions, please feel free to call us, contact us, reach out to us if you have any specific questions on these categories or how they work. So we're more than happy to discuss that. As stated previously, the 12 categories is a framework that connects funding to projects. A few key areas that are involved in understanding each categories are outlined in this slide. Basically, it's a really busy slide, says a lot. But basically, each category has specific types of work associated with it. It may be distributed using a formula that's outlined in the TAC rules. So the formulas themselves, we don't make up the the criteria that goes behind it. That's selected in the TAC rule, or it's in the TAC rule. Has specific rules regarding project selection and prioritization involved, that is in the selection. And lastly, is managed as either an allocation or project specific. So depending on the category, it's going to really be determined, whether that project is going to be something that the district gets as an allocation, or it's something that's basically project specific and most likely approved by the commission on that level. So let's discuss Category 1 as an example here. As mentioned, the development process and several categories involving formulas, they're used to distribute funding. So we collect data every year and update that, and update the formula. And for example, we have vehicle miles traveled, there's pavement scores, average rainfall, et cetera, et cetera. Those type of items actually go in putting together this formula that distributes funding to Category 1. And Category 1 is the district's preventive maintenance and rehabilitation program. Basically, it's managed as an allocation where we give the districts that allocation, and then the districts then select those projects, based on need or in their area. So a great reference of this is also can be found in the funding distribution or project selection. Can be found on our online document. It's under categories, codes, and levels of our UTP document. So some of the scoring methodology, most of y'all may be familiar that we rank these projects. Basically, Texas Administrative Code along with the Transportation Code both require that TxDOT rank and prioritize the priority of each project listed in UTP. Generally, what that means is that the projects are going to be ranked as a Tier 1, 2, or 3. And this slide basically just shows you the methodology of how we get to that point. Currently, the projects are ranked based on 3 criteria, which are strategic initiatives, which relates to the need, the funding availability that relates to the cost of the project, and then project readiness. So those are all 3 important criteria that's used to determine what that tier might be. After calculating the scores of each of these criteria, we produce a total score, and based upon the threshold shown here, determines whether it's going to fall into category Tier 1, ranked Tier 1, 2, or 3. So again, for more information on this, our UTP document actually includes a lot of the criteria that breaks down into that on the different levels, and it includes a bunch of data. So by all means, visit that. If you're familiar with how we got there, that's how we were able to rank those. So. Okay, some of the you've heard a lot of conversation about transitioning to performance-based planning. Currently, we're working with the department efforts on portfolio planning, the initiative, the funnel. And we'll discuss the funnel in a little more detail here shortly, so you can kind of understand where we're going with that. Everyone's heard of the Modernization Portfolio Project and Contract Management, or otherwise known as MPPM, which is an ongoing effort, and as well as UTP development. Some of the HB 20 efforts that are actually ongoing now, we're working on performance measures and metrics. We're also working on project prioritization and selection criteria, as well as the planning organization 10-year plan. So a lot of those are some of the efforts that we're leading to help with the House Bill 20 requirements. Other efforts that we're actually working on as well is working with the core strategy team on the TxDOT mission, visions, and values and goals, as well as sunset review, always helping with that, as well as adoption of House Bill 20 related rules, which we expect that sometime in fiscal year 2017 that would be probably approved. So. Okay, the performance-based process with UTP. This slide, the attempt of this slide is to kind of show you where we're at with the 2017 UTP in regard to where we expect to be in 2018 and beyond. There's going to be some slight differences, but mostly just kind of want to give you an idea of the impact that'll have. Right now, both use the agreed upon forecast. Public involvement, most of y'all have been involved with that process and understand what we go through on either a development cycle or a revision cycle. Understand that there's a lot of requirements there. So right now, whether it's the discussion or formal meeting or hearing will take place, and then the funding levels, for the funding levels, and then adoption possibly be on a separate level. So both would emphasize planning and performance. The UTP would be updated annually at most in 2018 and beyond. Right now, and in the past, we were forced to do quarterly revisions, and sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. The expectation is that it gives a lot of flexibility to the projects, which we're delivering the right projects, that shouldn't be an issue, right? So we're trying to eliminate or minimize the amount of the revisions that we have right now. And then also because it's a 10-year document, we don't really see a need to be going back to the commission every 3 months and asking for a change to that 10-year document. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you think about it. So we do have some needs that are pending right now. Basically, we need to confirm update and review cycles for the develop track and performance review tracks, determining how to address the portfolio managers and with the MPOs. How do we effectively introduce accountability as funding levels rise, which we've been seeing a lot of that, so to make sure that we're where we need to be with that. From 2018 and beyond, ensure that category structure continues to align with the new goals and metrics, and open that discussion once those metrics are set, with the new selection prioritization discussions that take place. Look at some key stakeholders, who the key stakeholders are in the process and under the new metrics and goals, who might be leading that effort. I think that's something that we also need to be taking, kind of be prepared for going forward. Also note, depending on the performance analysis tools, we could also add some predictive performance steps into that development track, which is something that we're kind of looking into as well. So there's a lot of a change that's going on in the department, and we're trying to get a handle on where we need to be, where we're at. We've taken a lot of good strides to move forward, and we'll continue leading that effort. Some of the goals that we're actually working on right now, or some of the goals that we had going into the 2017 UTP were to initiate performance-driven category allocations. I think we've done a good job with that. To ensure that we're prepared to deliver on when additional funding becomes available, FAST Act, Prop 7, et cetera. Added focus on planning and portfolio management, as we've discussed this morning, and increased alignment when needed for our budgets and resources, which is the main goal, right, is to be able to deliver those projects, deliver the right projects when we need to. And to get there, we need to be able to have the appropriate resources set up for the different phases of development for those projects. Some of the current challenges that we're working on or faced with is the UTP creates a framework, right, as everybody kind of maybe agrees to. But what we really fail to demonstrate is how the districts, NPOs, and statewide goals influence project selection. That's really what we really need to focus on, I think, and we'll be focusing more on that as time goes on. Another thing is that the UTP currently serves as a letting schedule. Adjusting letting requires formal revision. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because if we're talking about doing less, having a 10-year document and being a meaningful document, then we shouldn't be going tied so close to the letting schedule that every time a change takes place, a formal revision has to take place. So we need to also be understanding of that and mindful of that, and be prepared to separate away from that. The majority of our customers don't understand the documents or its purpose. We need to do a better job, with our message, basically, what the document is, what the purpose of the document is, and how to improve it if we need to. The frequency of the updates, as I mentioned, just adds confusion to the entire process. I mean, working with the districts and I would imagine the NPOs, even at some level, don't understand why we have to, do so many revisions and so many updates to the document. So trying to eliminate that will hopefully eliminate some of the confusion that I think that we've kind of put ourselves in at times. So, so what is portfolio management? Everybody's talked about it, and some of y'all probably have a really good idea what it is. It's basically a technique to optimize system performance by ensuring that the statewide allocations are effective, the projects are developed, and letting is prepared. It's really simple. Portfolio management and our central planning teams basically to ensure communication flow is concise, the support is targeted, and the information is consistent. This includes proposal of a quarterly review process that we're implementing, designed to create a funnel of projects that optimize those projects based on the stage of development and monitor those projects through the system. So that's kind of in a nutshell what that is. And then you ask, well, how does UTP relate to that? Well, there's a lot of relation between our project management, portfolio management, and our UTP. For one, you have portfolio, which is the pipeline of programs, right? Of projects and proposals with the associated needs to deliver the TxDOT's transportation plan and programs, such as the STIP, the UTP, even the long-range plan. You have program, which is the collection of projects and for planning and programming activities. A program may also be a collection of smaller projects and planning and/or related activities. So there's three types of programs that we generally work with. The funding categories are one, which I mentioned earlier. You have your district-wide initiatives, and then you have your group of associated work requests. So all those are kind of would make up a program. Then you have your project, which is the undertaking to create and modify and or maintain a unique asset. So, and then lastly, you have your proposal, which is basically the initiation of a project. So the initial data then can be entered into a system. The proposal then becomes a project when it's approved to enter into the funnel, which we'll discuss here shortly. And in that funnel, you'll have your different stages of development, either plan, develop, or construct. So depending on the type of project, it may not necessarily enter into a plan. It may go straight to develop, right? Short-term type projects. So here is the funnel. Everybody's probably, a lot of y'all may be familiar with it or at least seen it before. It basically just illustrates the stage gates for most of our planning processes that have been discussed and to some detail either this morning or yesterday. As you can see, the first gate here that's shown is the long-range plan, which is basically, it covers a 24-year time frame, and it's basically kind of the blueprint for our multimodal planning projects. Then you have your develop, which you're also in that gate. You also have metropolitan planning and the rural transportation plans, which is basically the 20-year horizon of more localized multimodal projects that are developed by the MPOs. Then you kind of move over into the Unified Transportation Program, which is a 10-year mid-range document, which includes projects that are planned for construction or development. It also includes projects for engineering, including engineering, environmental analysis, right-of-way, acquisition, and design. So from there, we move into basically the statewide Transportation Improvement Program, which covers the 4-year time frame and incorporates the metropolitan and the rural transportation plans into one statewide transportation improvement plan, or program, I'm sorry. Finally, we have the 2-year LET schedule. It basically includes all projects that are scheduled to go to bid, that are going to be awarded, construction is going to begin, and that all happens in the 24-month cycle there. We also, it is important that while the funnel as a whole starts the planning process, integrating projects into a portfolio management process starts with the 10-year UTP. And not because I just work with the UTP, but because that's kind of where we go to the commission and we ask for funding, right? Or for a specific project, whether there be project specific or allocation programs, if that's going to change. It's basically where the funding decisions are made. It identifies the different phases of development and that are required and how they will be funded. So, for example, if consultant engineering or right-of-way is needed, then our portfolio management process should assist in identifying those needs so that the appropriate budgets are then available and can facilitate the different phases of development. So this is kind of putting it all back on what that looks like in terms of a project, whether it's going to require environmental, it's going to require right-of-way, where's those funds coming from, and in the past that hasn't always been really clear, and unfortunately in the past how that's worked is that a project starts off as an initiated project and everybody understands the need for that project, but then as you go into developing that project, we get closer to letting, and then it's determined that right-of-way is needed. Well, is there a budget for that right-of-way in order for them to be able to procure those, that right-of-way? Sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't. And generally when it isn't, then they start pushing those projects out, which doesn't go very well with the public, because we should be in a better position to understand what those needs are to be able to, to be prepared for that, for that part of it, or that development of that project. And so this kind of gives us a little bit of an opportunity to kind of take a step back, look at the project, look where we're at, look what those needs are, and be better aligned to deliver that project at the time that the department says that project will be delivered. So. This next slide is just basically going to show you a dashboard tool in our portfolio. It's a matrix dashboard that enables the coordination between central planning and the districts by providing insight to a few key areas. It's busy, there's a lot of color in it, but it makes sense when you take a step back and look at what the I guess the intent of this tool is. It basically aligns funding sources with the project phase, so you can view the level of authority for each project and compare the project development phase, and providing the ability to either accelerate or decelerate the project phase depending on the availability or in line with authority, basically. So you don't want to move too far ahead of your authority. So this kind of gives us an idea, window of where we're at, to be able to make those, or at least to be able to provide that information to the decision makers, so this way they can make the decisions on what will move forward. The portfolio also makeup provides visibility into the total volume of projects that link back to the UTP CSJ, so that the district, so this way, we know what the district is working on, and allows Central to kind of align ourselves with the district focus on that particular project. So it just kind of gives us a little, again, a window of where that's at. And most of the portfolio is progressing in line with authority and phase. Right now, if you see the green cells kind of shows you where they're at. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, you may still have projects that are in plan that are in red, depending on the nature of that project. Not all projects are one-to-one, right? I mean, the short-term projects aren't necessarily going to have to go through a plan process. So, but it gives an idea, at least to focus in, and the tool, the way it's set up, you can actually click on that particular cell, and it'll actually give you the list of projects that make up not only the volume, but the details for that project. So it's a really good, interesting tool. I think the more we move forward with our process, and I think we'll be able to see the importance and take advantage of that. So. So looking ahead, we have continuous improvement efforts at TPP. TPP will continue working with administration, districts, and other divisions on the evolving key performance measures, which will directly affect portfolio and project prioritization and selection. So that's something that we'll continue looking and working on. We'll continue working on full integration of the portfolio management process into the unified transportation process. There's a lot of correlation there. I think there's a lot of improvements that can be made. I think we're off to a really good start in getting there. A lot of it is going to be based on the decisions that are made with like the House Bill 20 of what that might look like going forward. So we understand that, and we just, we'll be prepared as best we can to identify that and work with that. We'll continue to work and improve the recently implemented annual performance and reporting system. I don't know how many of y'all have had an opportunity to work with some of our folks there in the office, Dion Albert and them. They're leading the efforts on working on the APAR system. So that's kind of what that is. It's kind of the old project tracker that you can sit there and you can look at projects to see where the status of those projects are. But this gives you a lot more flexibility, a lot more information, real-time information that's going to be really helpful for everybody going forward. We're also, as I mentioned before, working to update the administrative code rules, as well as the ongoing House Bill 20 work, which will should provide greater accountability, objectivity, and transparency while delivering the right projects. At least that's our goal. We'll continue working towards that goal. And if there's anything that we can do from our office to help y'all in transitioning to this new process, this new project selection process, and this portfolio management process, by all means, just call on us. There's about, 5 of us in the office, Jessica, that are available to help at any given point. We do that. That's kind of pretty much how we, kind of our daily grind is not only working with a lot of these initiatives and processes, but also providing districts and other divisions support to get there. We work with a handful of divisions, environmental, right-of-way, some of these other that help us help the districts in delivering the right projects. So by all means, that basically concludes my presentation.